Hi, my name is Diego, and in this video I would love to help you make the choice of what instrument would you like to start taking music lessons in. Maybe you're a little bit like me. When I was young, I knew I loved music and I wanted to have more of it in my life. But at the same time, I didn't know what was the best instrument for me to start lessons in. In this video, we're going to give you a lot of detail, especially of the instruments that we teach, which are piano, guitar, ukulele, drums, and voice. And hopefully with all this information, you can make the best choice into what do you think would fit you better. At the same time, we're going to bring a couple of instructors. We're going to probably play a little bit, show you the instruments. So that way you're going to have a really good idea at the end of the video, which one do you think is the best one for you. So piano and keyboards are a really cool instrument. There's so many possibilities, and one thing that for us, they're all pianos. It doesn't matter if they have 49 keys or maybe 61 or even 88. At the beginning, learning how to play piano is very similar. And this is my setup that if you take lessons with us virtually, you're gonna be able to see it. I love it because among other things, it allows me to have multiple cameras. I can switch to them so that way you can see my hands. And if I play something here, it's very easy for you to see what I'm doing. Also, I use a software in which if I play notes and hold them, you're going to be able to see them light up like that. So that is also very useful. And also, if you want, I can also show you my hands at the same time that the software. And that makes a huge difference, especially when I'm trying to explain something to someone and they get a little bit confused. I can go like, okay, let me show you my hands and let me show you this. And this is the finger that you're going to use for that. Now, piano, among other things, is very cool because one thing that we can do with it is you can learn how to play, let's say, a melody like this. And you're going to do that with the right hand, and then I can learn how to play chords or simple other notes on the left hand to make it sound a little bit more complete. We start with stuff like that. We start with what we call C position, with your hands in one place, but then we can move to other songs, something that sounds like this. And at the same time, and the keyboard that I have here on the top has other sounds, things that would sound like this. So piano can have all sorts of options, including this top keyboard has drum beats. So I can do all sorts of almost like music production. I can create my own songs using keyboards like this that allow you to not only have, let's say, a cool sound, but at the same time I can combine that, let's say, with a piano sound. So the piano is a great instrument. It's a great instrument to be able to write on it, to be able to at the same time understand music theory. The fact that you begin with something very simple, keeping your hands in one place, it's awesome. And I guess the last thing that also makes it very easy is that when you push a key, it doesn't matter how you push it, it usually sounds pretty much good. In other instruments like guitar, you need to learn how to control the instrument at the beginning to really get a good sound. And so it's almost like the instrument at the beginning doesn't really sound unless you learn how to make it sound. In piano, we just have to learn how to play the right keys. But at the beginning, it's as easy as putting your fingers in one place. And that's a little bit of how we train you, especially if you take lessons here at the HIT with us. So for this next part, I wanted to bring Miss Danessa, which is one of our voice instructors. Thank you, Miss Danessa, for joining us.
Of course.
And we want to talk about what is the process like to become a singer, to take singing lessons. And we like to mention the importance of taking singing lessons because we want you guys to protect your voice. One of the things that we like to mention is your vocal cords do not have nerves. So they don't have a way to warn you when you are literally abusing them or really putting them through a lot of strain. So Ms. Danessa wants to explain to us why if you're 7 or 8 years old and you're singing all the time at home, it is important to probably find a good voice instructor.
Well, it's first of all, to sing, of course, you need really good breath. You need to be able to breathe very well. Breath determines everything when it comes to singing. So in the beginning, you may feel like you don't need it, you got it. It's nice and easy because you can sing simple songs, but as you get older and you start wanting to learn these more difficult songs, you're going to realize you're going to have a harder time singing them. So it's really important to take voice lessons, especially at a young age, so that you can learn to adapt to the right ways of breathing, yes, and that it helps you a lot better as a singer, especially at a young age.
Yeah, one thing that we see all the time with singers, and I would assume that this happens to Ms. Danessa, is when someone sings for 30 seconds, you can tell if they have training or not.
Yeah.
It's very easy because when people have taken the process of learning and getting coached properly, you can see all these nuances and all these things that are very hard to just do on your own. So we want to encourage you guys, if you like voice, and especially if you want to sing all the time, definitely find a good voice instructor. It's very important to protect your voice. Because another thing is, if we have a piano, but we get it damaged, we can take and go to a store and buy exactly the same piano. Now, what happens with your voice? You cannot do that. So we have even had people that we have known that have got their voice damaged to the point that they cannot speak for a month straight. And it is something pretty dangerous when that happens, because it's not like you can completely just get out of it. You sometimes are like just in the hopes that the damage that you did is not serious. But that's why it's really important to take voice lessons. Now, what happens when someone says, okay, I want to sing the same way that my favorite singer sings, someone famous, someone like Mariah Carey or Ed Sheeran, and someone feels like, I want to sing exactly like them? What would you tell them as a voice instructor?
Well, in reality, it's not possible to sing like anybody else other than yourself. What you can do is that if you get ideas or you like a certain style that an artist has that you love, you can learn how to adapt it into your own style. But don't try to be the famous person, because you're still your own person. Like, for example, I love R&B and I love different R&B singers, but I'm never going to sing like them. I just have to learn their creativity and try to put it in my own.
Yeah, I think you have to learn how to be you, the best version of you, without necessarily trying to copy someone else. And other thing, I think in the music industry, is very important to give you, because there's already the other person, the famous person. So we don't need a carbon copy of someone else. It's exactly. Like, especially now, I think it's more important to be unique. Now, what would you say a big part of singing? I think singing is awesome. You take it with you. You can go anywhere. But at the same time, how does singing work with the need to have other instruments, to be able to have tracks? Like, what would you say is the process of learning how to sing with other things around you?
Well, it's always good to pick up another instrument other than voice. For example, learning piano is a really big fundamental to learning how to sing, just because at the same time you want to have something that you can look at while learning to sing at the same time. Because you can't sing and see what you're doing inside your vocal cords. You just have to think that it's right or wrong. But of course, if you take voice lessons, you have the help to get to the right track. But if you also learn, for example, piano, you can also visualize and see what exactly you're singing in terms of notes. So definitely having another instrument in mind would help a lot tremendously with voice. Yeah.
As a singer, you're going to need to interact with other people. It's almost like singing is not done a cappella. I mean, sometimes, but not all the time. So you almost need that other... Singing, I believe it's almost like the icing of the cake. It's a very important icing of the cake, but at the same time, it needs the foundation. And the foundation can and usually is the other instruments. So as a singer, it's going to be a plus if you can actually play piano or other things. So thank you very much, Ms. Danessa, for your information and for all of your knowledge. So let's talk about guitars. Guitars, we have three main divisions. We're gonna have acoustic guitars with two types, and then we're gonna have electric guitars. So let's talk first about the acoustic guitars. You're gonna have guitars that the strings are made out of nylon, or the guitars that are strings are made out of metal. Now that's a big difference, because usually nylon string guitars are designed to play more classical style music. Now, nylon string guitars also tend to be bigger, don't really have a way to plug them in, and at the same time have a bigger frame, especially here on the neck. So all of those things make it harder for someone that is young, especially if you're 6, 7, 8. We don't recommend a classical style guitar or a guitar that has the strings made out of nylon. For us, we believe that a guitar with the strings out of metal is a much better choice, especially because they're gonna be smaller. This is my acoustic guitar with strings made out of metal, and one thing that I really like about this one is that this one is not a full-size guitar. So even though it's an acoustic and it's a little bit bigger than an electric, which we'll show you in a second, the thing that I like about it is that it's going to be smaller. So even if you're an adult, you don't necessarily need to play a big style guitar, a big guitar. One thing that I like about this one is because I teach and I use it while I teach. It's smaller, so it allows me to like move a little bit quickly and a little bit to play with my students a little bit easier. Now, for us, it's important that if you are younger, you actually get a guitar that is fitted for you. No one would ever ask you to, let's say, go play a soccer game or go for a run with your dad's shoes. Of course, course, that wouldn't fit and it would make it very uncomfortable. The same thing happens if your guitar doesn't really fit you. So it's great if grandpa had a guitar and you can start with that, but that's not necessarily going to fit you. And especially if you're younger, we do believe that it's important that you actually get a guitar that fits you well. Now, advantages of an acoustic guitar: it doesn't need electricity, and at the same time, it's important to not get a super cheap one because they tend to not sound that great. But it's very cool because you can take it anywhere and you can play it pretty much anywhere that you want. It's very transportable and it's a great instrument also for songwriting. And this is the guitar that we use for our students here at the Hit Music Studio. We love it because, as you guys can see, it's pretty thin. And one of the things that we like about electric guitars for beginners is that the strings are gonna be thinner. That immediately means that they're gonna be easier to push. So at the same time, having a body that is a little bit thinner allows you to, when you're young, to almost get around it a little bit easier and not struggle too much to play it. So electric guitar, we do believe it's an easier beginner, especially if you are, let's say, 7, 8, 9. At the same time, you do have to purchase an amplifier and you have to get a cable. And those two things cost money and it's something that you're gonna have to move around if you wanna play an electric guitar. We do think that if you start on electric, later on you can purchase an acoustic, and the other way around as well. I think electric guitar is a little bit easier, but most guitar players, if you really love music, later on you can invest and have both of them, because some songs are gonna fit better on electric and some other songs are gonna sound a lot better on acoustic. Now, one cool thing about electric guitar is that you have that rock and roll sound, like you're not gonna get that out of an acoustic guitar. So if you're looking for a little bit more energy and a little bit more to play rock, you are gonna need an electric guitar. There's tons of sounds that you can get out of both, but at the same time, it's almost like the electric guitar would have access to have that distorted sound that you probably recognize in recordings that you like. Drums is a really cool instrument, tons of fun to play, and at the same time an instrument that can give you the ability to play with other people. Now, it is big, and one of the things that we like to tell you is that if you're considering playing drums, make sure that you have the space in your room or somewhere in your house, because it does take space and it's not something that you want to just put in and out of the closet when you're going to practice. It is beautiful to be able to play electronic drums or acoustic drums. This one is an electronic drum set. Now what that does is it's plugged into a speaker so I can raise and lower the volume. If you have only an acoustic drum set, the problem with that is that it's going to probably be really loud. Loud enough that it may get you in trouble with the neighbors. Now, one of the things that we do here is we have an electronic ones and we also have acoustic ones. And you can do a lot of different things to the acoustic ones to make sure that they don't sound super loud. At the same time, it's an instrument that is not cheap. You want to get one that is pretty good, and we're talking about $500 or so for a good electronic one or for a good acoustic one. If you get cheaper ones, the ones that are electronic tend to fall apart and the acoustic ones tend to not sound that great. But I think that's important for you guys to know. Also, it's an instrument that is really cool that you can play with other people, but it's almost like you're gonna need other people to have fun, because it's an instrument that it's a little bit like the goalie of a soccer team. You need someone to throw the ball, and especially you're gonna need someone to throw the ball at you so you can practice. So this is an instrument that you need other instruments to play with. You can play with tracks and other things that we have, but the most fun is to actually interact with other musicians. So you should consider if you have someone in your family or maybe some friends that you can play if you're gonna learn how to play it. Now, at the same time, it's an instrument that is very almost physical. It's an instrument that takes a while sometimes to learn certain things on it. You want to go very slowly and almost in steps so you can actually get those patterns down. But there's a lot of things that are a lot of fun to do, including something like this. And a lot of people recognize those patterns. So once again, beautiful instrument, lots of fun. At the same time, is one that the beginning may be a little bit expensive and at the same time a little bit loud. Let's talk about the ukulele. The ukulele is a great instrument because, among other things, it's very small. It's pretty much a guitar with 4 strings. And one thing that we really like is that the size compared to a regular guitar, I mean, it's less than half of the size. So for students that are younger, let's say you're 5, 6, 7, this may be a really good instrument. Also, they're very inexpensive. You can get some of them for between $20 and $50, which is very, very inexpensive, and they can be decent. Now, if you want a good one, you should get it more into the $100 range, but that's for actually a really good one. Now, the size that we do recommend is a tenor ukulele, and one of the things that we really like about this instrument is that very easily with one finger you can produce a chord. That's something that doesn't happen in guitar. In guitar, you actually need a good amount of work and to get familiar with the instrument before you can actually play chords. So here with one finger, or sometimes two, I can actually start playing chords. And that's actually great for, let's say, someone that also sings, or maybe if you want to get into songwriting. So it's a great instrument. It's very transportable because of its size too. And another thing that we like is that you can start playing it with your fingers and doing simple melodies. So all of those are great additions to what the instrument can bring. Now, I would say the cons that it has, or the little limitations that it has, is that because it's small, it sounds a little bit thinner. So it's gonna be harder to play when you're interacting with other instruments that are loud, like drums. And at the same time, because it only has 4 strings, it's a little bit more limited. So I think it's also a really cool instrument to add. If you play piano, maybe you play guitar, you can add this, even if you play drums or you sing. But at the same time, if you only play this instrument, it can be somewhat limited, especially for further down the line if you want to take your music to the next level. So as we get ready to finish this video, I wanted to bring Mr. Juan here so we can talk a little bit about almost what do we think, what is the process of learning an instrument, because both of us are very, very privileged to play more than one instrument. So how many instruments do you play?
I play about 5, I would say. 5 clean.
And one thing that we want to mention is that both of us did not get to play 5 instruments on our first year or on our second year. So it is very important to take your time. And what would you say was your advice in terms of learning more than one instrument?
I would say, stick with one at least for about a year seriously. As you progress, you're going to see how you could pick up another one, and little by little, they both start progressing upwards. So about a year, I would say.
Yeah, it's you guys, if you're young, if you're younger than, I don't know, 20, you literally have tons and tons of time. So if you're 7, 10, 13, you have the chance of maybe spending 2 or 3 years on piano or guitar, getting a little bit of a good foundation, and then trying to move to something else. Now, for both of us, I think it's very cool to play more than one instrument, because what would you say that does when you're a musician?
Well, it definitely opens up your opportunities.
Yes.
Especially for a professional musician. For example, if I play drums, cool, but I could play a little bit of percussion, or I could play some piano. Who knows, maybe in different songs I could play something else, and it just opens up a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, and one thing that happens nowadays when you're working at a church or you're playing for your school, it's awesome to be able to, okay, this song requires guitar, but the next song needs piano. And maybe you don't need a pianist, but you need one song to be covered on piano. And if you're the kind of musician that you can do more than one thing, I think it's a very cool thing. Now, when it comes to being good at any of those instruments, what would you say is do you think there's one that you can get better in less time than the other ones? Or when we're talking about guitar, piano, drums, is it all about the same amount of work to be really good at them?
Well, it all starts with practice, of course, right? There are harder instruments. For example, I would say piano is a simple one to start off right in the beginning, right? Guitar is one of the harder ones because you have to control your fingers. The dexterity is different.
Yeah.
Drums is a little bit different because it's coordination.
Yeah, very mechanical, very just practice things for hours and just go slowly at it.
Yeah, definitely. So it just takes time to practice, right? If you want to get better, you got to practice. Sit down, little by little, you're going to see it, you're going to get better as well.
Yeah, and we want to finish by saying this. We want to encourage you guys to get a good program. One of the things that happens now, there's a ton of information out there. There's a ton of free stuff, but it's very easy to just learn bits and pieces that are not connected. So we want to encourage you guys to find either a music school or someone that can give you a program that can take you from point A to point B. It's very confusing for your mind and for your fingers when the things that you're doing don't really have a sequence. So very important to try to be patient with yourself, but try to find a good program so you can learn how to play any of these instruments. So we truly hope this video was a great starting point so you guys can get some ideas. And if you want a little bit more about what we do here, definitely consider checking what we do online. We are under the name The Hit Music Studio. So we want to thank you again for watching, and thank you, Mr. Juan, for all of you have done in the creation of this video. We'll see you guys soon.